So let's start with it then, David and Matt. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hyperledger Sweden, this meetup, where we are going to talk about blockchain for entrepreneurship. This is Prajit Datta, leading Hyperledger Sweden. With us today, Matt Zand is there, who is going to take this workshop. He is from DC Webmakers. And over to you, Matt.
Okay, thanks, Prajit, and then thanks, David, for your introductions. And again, thanks everyone for attending or having me in this webinar. So basically, in this webinar, let me see if I can move some of my stuff here so I can have my own screen here. Just 1 second, move this one down there, and then move it down there. Okay, thanks everyone. So basically in this webinar, I want to talk about how you can use the blockchain for starting a new business. So how the entrepreneurs can utilize the blockchain technology for starting a new business. So at a very high level, this kind of the webinar is divided into 4 different sections, which in the outline section, I want to a little bit talk about that, so that you have a very high level overview of things going to be discussed in this webinar. And so let me see. Okay. So in this webinar, I'm going to go over 27 different use cases of blockchain. And again, a year from now, if you want to come back to this PowerPoint, it might be 37. So things are changing, and industries are finding new ways to adopt the blockchain. So a little bit background about myself. So I'm like a serial entrepreneur, and I have started a few companies, so mostly in the information technology in Washington, DC. And then I also I'm the a leading author of the Hyperledger Fabric book that comes with Corda Media. And the book, the early release of the book came out last month, and the actual book is going to come in 2021. So if you go to that link, you would be able to see the early release of the book. And then at the end of this presentation on the meetup page, I'm going to give you guys a coupon code that you can access the early release and then try to read the few chapters of the book. And I also have written a lot in blockchain community at IBM, and also I have a master's degree in I have an MBA from University of Maryland. And then prior to that, I have done other jobs in information technology, consulting, investing and things like that. So, but again, you can find me on LinkedIn, and can add me on LinkedIn. So prerequisite, there is no prerequisite for this webinar. I'm assuming that you have a basic knowledge of blockchain, and so that would be enough. As I was mentioned earlier on, there are like 4 different areas. So at the very high level, first of all, I want to go over the blockchain and talk about what the blockchain is. And again, I'm going to skip through this because there is so much stuff going on in this presentation that I just want to focus on the part that are essential for you guys. So for those people who are not familiar with blockchain or new to the blockchain, they can go back to this PowerPoint later on and try to dig into different slides or research them and learn more about those specific topics. And then, so on the overview of blockchain, we talk about blockchain, structures, how it works, smart contracts, and different job title or roles that the blockchain can undertake when they when they are joining a companies or working on a blockchain area, and then the apps, and then some of the challenges that blockchain is experiencing in implementations. And then after that, in the second section, we talk about popular blockchain platforms very briefly: Hyperledger Family Fabric, Corda, Ethereum, and other popular blockchains. So after that, we going to discuss about the blockchain use cases, and obviously the last part is talk about how you can start a business on a blockchain. So the reason I selected these 4 different kind of the area is deliberate, because if someone joined this webinar and has no knowledge of blockchain and want to start a new business using the blockchain, they have to go through these 4 steps one by one. So first, the person need to know what the blockchain is. Then the second, they need to know what are the platforms that are out there. And after that, they need to know what is the use case of blockchain is, and if the idea that he has in mind would be a good fit for blockchain. Once these first 3 steps are taken, then the person can think of how we can commercialize it, how we can put the proof of concept things together and launch the business. So these 4 steps are like sequential if you want to start a new venture on blockchain. So, so the first section is this overview of blockchain. What is blockchain and the main component? As I said, I'm just skipping through this, and you just use some of this slide as your reference in the future if you want to come back and learn more about these topics. So the first thing is that what's the definition of blockchain? As you know, on the Hyperledger website, there's a good definition of the blockchain. Blockchain is a peer-to-peer distributed ledger forged by consensus combined with a system of a smart contract. So as you see there from the bolded words, there are 3 major characteristics of a blockchain: distributed, consensus, and a smart contract. So these are the main characters of the blockchain that come together and form this technology. So there are different consensus algorithms out there. Each platform adopts its own, has its own consensus algorithm, and they evolve. And I'm going to talk about evolvement of that and distributed nature of it, and a smart contract that's used for automating the application. So, and again, when it comes to blockchains, as we discussed, the distributed nature of it is very important because it makes it more secure. And then the structure of blockchain is that the chain of blocks are connected to one another. And I'm going to a little bit talk more about this in few slides. It's just that blockchain, some of those components we discussed is going to be a little more in depth. For example, as you see in this graph, there are 3 types of the network. One is a public, private, and then permission consortium. So whether the network is a public or private, permissionless or permissioned, so there are different kind of the platforms or different kind of the framework that builds on that. So Hyperledger Fabric is one that is used for big corporate, and then there's like private permissioned platform versus the Bitcoin that's only for currency or like cryptocurrency. And then others on here. The next slide. Again, I'm going to leave this slide to you guys to read them on your own if you want to dig into this more in detail. It's just that each network has its own pros and cons, benefits, challenges, and characteristics. And why I include this diagram and include this kind of the network here is, again, my intention is people who are watching this video or people who are like following this slide are the people who want to start a new business on blockchain. Would it be consulting of the blockchain? Would it be building a blockchain as a service, blockchain as a product? So they need to know about the choice of the network that they have and what is the best choice of network for them. Now, this slide is very important. Now, oftentimes when I come in contact with different clients that we have, they ask us, okay, do we need a blockchain? And this is very important because sometimes you have to be honest with them because not all the problem can be solved by blockchain. So you have to do some preliminary assessment with respect to the problem that they have to see if that problem is the right fit for blockchain. So this diagram shows you step by step like a flow of the question that you can ask your client to determine if the problem that they have is the right fit for the blockchain. So basically, there are key elements like database. Do they have a database? Are multiple people writing to that database? Are the writers trust each others? And do they have someone in common to trust? Yes or no? So as I said, again, if you want to start a business, if you have an idea that you want to explore to launch it as using blockchain technology, make sure to come to this table and assess it for feasibility. And of course, if you want to do consulting, you need to know about this, by heart when you're assessing your project. So how blockchain works? So basically, again, is open distributed ledgers, and then is a peer-to-peers. Each peer you can look at each peer. You can view each peer as a computer, standalone computer in a network. That if it's been compromised, the other peers are gonna be there to help him out. And of course, once the data is recorded, is immutable and cannot be updated. And you also need to know that there are two types of the data in a blockchain. One is called on the chain and off the chain. So so sometimes some of the data of the chain, you may need to update them, but you're gonna just put those data off the chain. And some of them, yeah, should not be updated. So in the Hyperledger, basically, there's a specific kind of the ways you can handle the private data in a consortium. I mean, that they're all different. I mean, it can be one webinar of itself. If I want to talk about how Hyperledger handles the data in its saving, in its private and public way between the members of the consortium. But for now, just to have an idea that how the blockchain works is a way of distributed networks, and then data are not updated. So again, this is like a block of chains and the hash, and each blocks carries the previous hash and forward hash, and then at any given time, if you look at the block, you have a record of what happened. If something is compromised on this block, you can look at the previous, you have an idea that it has been compromised. And again, I'm just going to skip this because some of this, I mean, you can use them as a reference for yourself in the future. Now, obviously, you guys know about the smart contract. Again, a smart contract is a kind of the program has been written to been triggered. So the intention of the smart contract is a program that once the certain condition is met, the program run by itself. So that's triggered by itself. So that's the whole concept of a smart contract. And it's very important as a key element of a blockchain, because as a background, one of the reasons blockchain is very popular among the business community is that they love the idea of automation, removing the third-party middleman and automating the whole process. At the heart of the automation of blockchain is a smart contract that does all the jobs. So again, in Hyperledger Fabrics, each node can have its own smart contract. And if each node can have its own smart contract. And then the things is that, so basically, a smart contract can also be viewed as a back end. So if you know the web design, I'm going to talk about the next slide, I believe. So a little bit more about a smart contract. So basically, as I mentioned, so first you create a smart contract, right? And then you put it in a network, and then when the conditions are met, the smart contract going to trigger itself, and then the persons who is involved going to receive that kind of the transaction going to be finished at this stage, and then the record of transaction going to be added to the chain. So that's the whole process of that. So when you developing a smart contract, make sure you run the basic cybersecurity on it, because one of the problems with some of the blockchain application development that we are experiencing is that they have a poor architecture in the smart contracts, meaning that they haven't done good audit on the smart contract. So one of the key part of the blockchain cybersecurity is auditing the smart contract to make sure there's no hole in it, because once you put it there, it's going to stay there. So now, so basically, what are the rules? So again, one of the things is that the common assumptions is that, okay, whoever is in the blockchain community is a developer, which is not true. There are other people, other players in the blockchain community. So someone can be architect. Actually, architect is very important because they design this layout of the blockchain systems, and especially in Hyperledger Fabric, because Hyperledger has a lot of Hyperledger Fabric has many components like peers, nodes, small contract, a channel, and you have to structure them properly in a way that policies in a specified properly, configuration done properly. So you really need the blockchain architect and blockchain administration's part. Of course, you need a blockchain developer. The main job of blockchain developers is mostly building a smart contract. And then blockchain users, the people who are going to use the blockchain. So that's why you need a UI for them. And of course, some people who are regulators. So regulators may not be the government per se. So, for example, in Hyperledger Fabric Consortium, admin can be a regulator, because one example of Hyperledger Fabric Consortium is that there might be cases where the members of the consortium want to update a policy or configuration. So that has been moderated by the regulator of that blockchain network. So blockchain operators, again, so people who are monitoring the networks, monitoring the traffic, and making sure that, things run properly, and then membership services, which are in charge of the membership, like membership service providers who check the ID of each members. For example, in Hyperledger Fabric network, each members that somehow communicate with the network have different roles, and then have different kind of the ID assigned to the persons. So, based on that ID and role, he can perform some of these tasks. It has been authorized to perform some tasks on that network. And and then again, membership services keep track of all the ID people in the network. And then other things like traditional data sources, and then like SAS, or kind of the other traditional data sources that off the chain. And then traditional processing platform, because sometimes you use the blockchain in conjunction with AI, machine learning, or what's called Internet of Things. So if you are doing those cases, you may also create a bridge API to communicate with blockchain. Obviously, you guys know about the concept of DApp, or decentralized applications. Is basically, if you guys know about how the website is structured, website has a front end and back end. And so DApp also has a front end and back end. So front end of it's just a UI. Sometimes you can use SDK, Hyperledger SDK for that, very easy. And sometimes you can use and then for the back end, you can also use the chain code. Now for front end, there are different ways. You can use JavaScript, React or Angular. And for back end, you can use the smart contract. And then sometimes, again, you need to create the API to connect with the off-the-chain data, because one of the challenges of blockchain implementation, speaking from our experience, is that many companies are reluctant to make so much changes to their current system. So if you go into a company and try to pitch them, make sure to say that, look, implementation is going to be very easy. So you're going to create a standalone application that with API to connect with your current system. So you don't want to go and disrupt your business operation. So blockchain challenges, obviously, is still evolving. It still are find its feet in the industry. And then performance, speed, scalability, standardization of interoperability. That's another challenge, and regulations. For example, asset tokenizations still have some regulations behind. Because sometimes when you are using blockchain in a global area, you might run into some of the issues of regulation, because one country may not have very good legal ground around the dispute that's used blockchain technology. I'm going to a little bit talk about that later slides. So now that we briefly reviewed the go ahead. Okay, so guys, so basically here I'm just want to quickly go to blockchains just very briefly. So popular blockchain, one is Ethereum, as you guys know, and for your information, blockchain has 4 generations. There are 4 generations of blockchain. So the first generation of blockchain was Bitcoin. Second generation of blockchain was Ethereum, and the Hyperledger, and then third one, again, each generation, there is no specific consensus on those generations. It's just that the way the industry started and technology started and evolved, they divide into different generations. So Ethereum is the second generation of blockchains. Bitcoin was only based on currency. The third one, the second one, like Ethereum, used the other form of assets. That's where the asset tokenization came to picture, right? And then Ethereum has its own virtual currency called Ether. And then Corda is another one that's it's distributed ledgers. It's used based on Java, and it's started for finance. Then later on, Corda again, Corda is permissioned. Ethereum is a public, and then Corda started with finance. Then later on, adopted by other industries. And they have a different consensus algorithm. That's a major highlight of the Corda, because unlike Hyperledger and Ethereum, that they have their own. For example, Ethereum has a proof of work, and then lately they are saying that they're working on proof of stake for consensus. But Corda has its own kind of the consensus wherein the parties know each other. So their consensus is more efficient since the parties know each other's. And then obviously Hyperledger have its own consensus. So as you guys know about Hyperledger Fabric, is distributed ledgers, and then is multi-ledgers, is meant for enterprise, implementations. And then one of the things about Hyperledger Fabric, again, as I said, is multi-ledgers. And if you are like learning Hyperledger Fabric or doing some stuff in it, I have to tell you that you have to be patient with Hyperledger Fabric. There's so much stuff going in it, so you have to learn it, slowly. And now, one of the things is that for Hyperledger Fabric's chain code, you can use the Go JavaScript, or you can use the Java that recently is available. Now, the things about Hyperledger I was going to mention, we have one chapter in our book talk about family, of Hyperledger. So Hyperledger family, under its umbrella, there are like ledgers, there are libraries, tools doing a specific project. Hyperledger Fabric is one distributed ledgers under the Hyperledger family. So it's, again, if someone new to this Hyperledger, I suggest to at least look at some of these ledgers that Hyperledger project Hyperledger Foundation have under its umbrella, libraries. Again, some of the important things you have to remember, again, you can come back to this slide later on, dig into this project and tools. One important things I need to mention is that some of these projects or tools or libraries are under the at the incubation stage, meaning that they still are not being at production. So just remember that when you're reviewing those projects. So very brief. So in a book that we have, we go over the Hyperledger Fabric version 2, and then we talk about Hyperledger blockchain, and then family, and then component, right? Then after that, we have 3 chapters on a smart contract, development, testing, and debugging. And then we have also one chapter specifically talks about how you can build the Hyperledger Fabric on cloud platform like Azure, AWS, Oracle, and IBM. For those who are new to the Hyperledger Fabric on cloud, I have a very simple hint. So if you want to build the Hyperledger Fabric on cloud, each platform comes with something called template, which comes with kind of the pre-compiled configurations, which is very easy for doing demo on Hyperledger Fabric. So just go to those platforms and use a template, and by using that template, you can easily build your network and just use it to demo your product to your clients. And the second, the more difficult, more complicated way of using this platform is to customize the configurations of that cloud. Hopefully in the next year, we're going to have one webinar about any of these platforms to show you how we can deploy the Fabric on those platforms. And then obviously we have one chapter to show you how we can build the end-to-end kind of we have one chapter on build end-to-end pharmaceutical supply chains with Fabric. So this is also right now available in the early release of the book. It's very simple. You cannot imagine how easy it is to do this, because we put it as simple as possible. Basic JavaScript. All you need to know the basic JavaScript to build your first end-to-end supply chain with Hyperledger Fabric 2. And then obviously we talk about version 2 features and how you do migration. When you do migration to version 2, what are the things you have to watch for it, especially the binary codes. And then we also talks about other kind of the fabrics other fabrics like Aries, Grid, So again, for those people who want to know, or again, you want to do consulting, you want to do something, they need to know what are the key characteristics of the private versus public blockchain, and why businesses like private. So these are some of the characteristics. And so this is like other popular blockchain platform. And then, so now let's focus on the blockchain use cases, right? So there are 27, believe me or not, some of these use cases here may take even 1 hour in itself. There's so much stuff, because in each use case, there might be different area of implementation. So finance in itself, I try to have another talk on finance, especially asset tokenizations. So finance is so much stuff in the finance. For example, you can do the syndicated loan on finance. You can do crowdfunding with asset tokenization. There's so much stuff you can do with finance. And then another area you guys have heard of that is that in the accounting also they're using finance too. And then for cybersecurity, network security, you can also use the blockchain. Again, if you have a current system that is vulnerable and there's security holes in it, you can use blockchain to improve the security of that system. And inside the for the cybersecurity professional, they can even use the blockchain to automate some of their own tasks, like, for example, penetration testing. Now on the entertainment, if for the people who create the content, like artists, they can have a royalty right on their content and share and sell that, tokenize that and sell that to the other people, and then they can also sell them into the secondary market. So again, for content producers, like video, music, content producers, entertainment, they can use the blockchains in their advantage to tokenize that and just keep the royalty of the asset ownership. And there are so many ways that the energy industry can use that. One of the most notable one is that for example, if you're using the solar panel on your in your house, and you have extra energy and you want to sell that without having a middleman, you can sell all those extra energy through the blockchain without using the middleman, right? So this is another kind of and then it's more environmentally sustainable. So again, energy itself has many area. It's just that those notable ones that I have seen use cases and just review them. Supply chain, as you guys know, it's so basically supply chain has from Walmart. You got familiar with Walmart supply chains, and goes all the way to the mining. So supply chains in itself has so much kind of the applications, especially traceability of the asset and tracking the custody of the asset in the chain. And again, one of the challenges with supply chain might be that how you can bring all different parties together to consent, to agree on that. That's the key. That's one of the challenges, because in some cases, if you can arrange them as like principal and agent, arrangement should work. Law enforcement also, they can also use the blockchain, and for example, if they are doing for criminology, it's just if they want to like criminology, if you want to looking for evidence, they can, when someone go to the crime scene, they just scan the evidence, and those goes to blockchain. Then that's not going to be a change. It's going to be immutable, so that can be used as evidence. And identity management, you can hash store all the identifiable on a blockchain and share those information with anyone that's need to access them. And then in a government, like elections and votings, blockchain can be used. You give one vote to each persons who want to vote, and then blockchain going to tally them up. And then once someone casts his vote, blockchain going to tally them up, and then tell who is get elected. Fundraisings, again, the area of the fundraisings, fundraising goes under the asset tokenization. So basically on the fundraising, is ERC20 is the Ethereum token that you can use for using fundraisings. And again, one of the things is that I'm trying to have another talk on initial coin offering versus security token offering versus the IPO. But again, the major things about the ICO and fundraisings is that you have to watch for regulations, because in some countries it's not allowed, or regulation is not there yet. But just fundraising basically means that you want to raise some fund, and then you issue what's called you issue token to anyone who want to have the own your equity. So anyone who have that token has a portion of your equity. So let's say that you want to raise 200,000, and then the issue token to the people invest in your 200,000. So unlike other crowdfunding platform, so here any persons who have a token just have a portion of equity of your company. And if the fund, if you hit the trigger, the 200, if you meet the 200,000, then the fund going to go to your account. You can have a smart contract for that. So if 200,000 is reached, then 200 goes to your account and you start the business. Otherwise, a smart contract going to revert back and refund all the people that invested. So personal data, and again, Bravo web browser is a good example that you can use blockchain in ecosystem of sharing. With other people sharing the revenue from advertisement with the visitors. Record keeping, of course, the government agencies can use the blockchain to do the record keeping. For example, in Brazil right now they're using blockchain to register the land, and that way no one can fake. Loyalty program is another way that you can point your loyalty program, tokenize it, so that way a person can redeem the loyalty different ways than the traditional one. They can resell that point to someone else. In healthcare, again, the customers' patient data can be stored securely in a database, and then can be exchanged with different players in a healthcare. Smart cities can also use the blockchain, especially for security area of that, because some of this Internet of, I'm going to talk about Internet of Things shortly. They oftentimes have a poor security, and of course, in a legal settling the dispute is another area that blockchain can be used. So in many cases, contractors submit the invoice, but the company may not know if the company has done a job. So there's so much dispute comes up. So if you use a blockchain, since it's not immutable, then they can trust that the person has done his job. So there's so much implication of the settling dispute. In terms of the things, the major part is that many of the hardware devices that we are using, they have a weak security, so they can use a blockchain to improve the security of it. And again, I am planning to have another talk on this, human resource management, because there's so much stuff going on. And so one of the area that I'm very interested to talk in human resource management is that every middle or to large scale companies around the world have human resource management department, and they are unaware of how much they can use blockchain to optimize their operations, because they are in charge of the payroll. They can automate the payroll. They do a lot of cross-border payment. They can automate that. They can digitize all of their employees' information securely. They can also automate their employment contract, because there's so many parties involved in a recruiting process, from the screening to the hiring and promotion. They can also use cybersecurity to protect their, because human resource usually deal with a lot of private information, embarrassment of the expenses, promotion, performance assessment, and the subcontractor. Because, for example, universities, HR, human resource at universities, they're dealing with so many subcontractors for performing tasks. So you can use a blockchain, a smart contract, to automate that, and then also reduce the dispute, because there are so many disputes going on, at subcontractors. So real estate, of course, the major part is that you can tokenize your asset. You can, for example, if you have a property, you can tokenize it and sell it or rent it. And basically, when you're selling or renting, you can also remove the brokers or lawyers or so many middlemen. And retail fashions, retail fashions and luxury has so much to do with sustainability. This could be another topic that if someone want to go a little bit explore that. So because retail and fashion has a high seasonality, so meaning that they usually inventories are sent in advance of the selling seasons, and the inventory has a seasonality. So once the season is finished, they go to the outlet, and sometimes they are not going to even be sold. So it's going to be waste in the environment. And then brand authenticity. So how you can trace the brand to the manufacturer itself, because there's so much faking of brand. How you know the cost, because brand high luxury, they're very sensitive to customer experience. So that's another area that's very important. And sport sport also has amazing. If you look at some of the slides later on, we'll be amazed how much sport can utilize blockchain, because they can create the betting. Use the blockchain to do betting, tokenize the betting. They can also tokenize the team, and then also sharing the revenue of the part of the event with other participants. The mining industry, you may be surprised how many players are in the mining industry, and then how complicated is mining, from the surveying, of the land. We have spoken to people in the mining, and they are amazed of the blockchain, from the very like, for example, South Africa, from those mining to all the way to the retailer who sell the diamond and gold. The whole chain needs blockchain, can use the blockchain. Tracking of the ores, minerals, and then also preventing the fake, and the lease management. So you can go back to this and research more about the application of that. Publishing industry, like book, one of the main concerns that many authors has is that some of these publishing companies, they take a major portion of the cut. So is there a way for them to publish their book without going through the book publishing, by sharing the revenue? Is the participant? The answer is yes. And you can use the blockchain for that. And even the old-fashioned publishing company, like print supply chain, they can use the blockchain. And again, the publishing industries also regarding the royalty program that they have, like ownership royalty, comes to the under IP commercializations, protection and management, which they can use the blockchain to keep track of their IP and see who is using their IP. And again, this can be a talk of itself. Aviation industry, airline, maintenance and operation of aviations, airline industry, from ticketing for loyalty program to security and identity. For example, many people who are working on the maintenance of the airline, they need to have a special badges. So you can use the blockchain to not forging those badges. And then one of the things is that one of the important area that's very good for an airline is dispute reconciliations, because when you go from, for example, from DC to the for example, to the Texas, you may stop at multiple stations. So for one airline trip, there are like multiple airline involved, right? From one trip, there are multiple airline involved. So they usually share the revenue of that trip with one another. So there's so much stuff of dispute and reconciliations involved in that. So you can use the blockchain to automate the reconciliation. And then again, you can use blockchain for aircraft. And then agriculture has so many use cases, especially from because when, for example, someone pick up the soil from the farm to the actual consumers, there are different derivatives in the chain. And then for quality control, you can use it, and for inventory management, you can use it too, to see how much, because many of the agriculture product has a perishable nature. So you don't want to lose your inventory in the chain. And of course, anyone that knows agriculture knows that they are usually have a global nature, right? Agriculture usually traded from country A to country B. So how you can use the blockchain to reduce the processing fee or transaction fee. And then, of course, insurance companies can also use the blockchains. And then again, there is a link there. You can go and learn more about how insurance company can use the blockchain. The most notable one, I have seen many use cases on claim handling, to automating the claiming process. And then higher education can also use, because right now there are so many fake credential out there, and how universities can issue their own kind of the credential based on blockchain that cannot be forged. And then data science also has started to look into the blockchain, because the quality of the predictions or data analysis depends on the quality of input of data. So basically, right now, many of the data science companies are trying to use the blockchain to filter in quality data. So when the data comes to the system are past the filter of blockchain, meaning that has been validated, then you start with the quality data, and then you're going to get the good prediction and good data analysis on it. So I may have another talk on this in the future, because we have made a lecture for this before. So launch startup businesses. So now that you know about what's the blockchain platform and what are the use cases, the next steps is that how you can start a blockchain business, right? So basically, there are like five this is like phases, 5 different phases for starting a blockchain, right? So one thing is that there are like 5. Okay, so again, one of the things I saw a few questions from you guys. I'm almost done. I mean, a few slides left. After that, I'm just go back to answer your questions. So just message me. I mean, just text your message in the chat, and I go over them one by one after I finish. I'm almost done. So there are 5 phases of blockchain product development. So first step is you have to research to see if this idea is a good fit for blockchain, and then study what platform you want to use, what is the, for example, architecture going to look like, what is the business model going to look like, and then one of the things that I have noticed from many people out there is that many people get excited about blockchain and start even to go to prototype or even proof of concept, not realizing that they don't have a very good commercialization plan. So it's very important for you guys to know that whatever applies to the old-fashioned, startup like business plan, commercialization plan, it applies to blockchain too, because you have to do the math, realize that, okay, how much is the network cost going to be, how much maintenance cost going to be. You have to factor all of it in, and then who's going to buy your product, because one of the key decisions at the research is to determine if you want to sell your blockchain as a service, like a monthly subscription, or as a product, like offering as a solution to companies. And then if you want to offer as a solution, who is going to buy that? Do you have already? And another also suggestion I have is that I would really suggest that if you want to start something, let's say that you want to build a blockchain product in the airline industry, make sure you have at least a few years of experience in the airline industry, or have someone from the airline industry on your team. Otherwise, you may experience some of the challenging questions from folks that are working on that industry. So again, the research, you determine what is your model going to be, what's your commercialization plan going to be, and then after that, you build your prototype, design your prototype, make sure everything's look good, and then proof of concept. As I said earlier on, you can easily use the AWS or use the Azure or other platform to use their template to build your demo to show how it works. And after the minimum viable product that runs on the system is not fully integrated, and obviously last step is integrate and production and support, and which may be part of it. Training might be part of this. So these are all that steps that you have to follow. Now, basically, one of the things is that again, in our company, we do some of this stuff, but just that again, for the first steps we do is incubations. Again, basically, this is what we do in the company is the same. So someone comes there, say, look, what you want to build, and then what is your market, what's your commercialization plan. So basically we jog down and we just make sure that if this plan sounds good, and then after that, if a person knows how to build, if not, we help him with prototype and goes all the way to the end. So again, this is just some of the stuff that we do in our company. So now, I think we covered everything. So let's quickly review what we discussed in this webinar, right? So first of all, you can come back to this webinar later on, download, because there is a link in the meetup, download the PDF, the file of these presentations. You need to come back to this webinar by yourself, go to the industry that you want to learn more, dig into it, research it, and then try to come up with your own idea and work on it. So again, in this webinar, we talk about what is the blockchain, how the blockchain technology works, and what are the top popular platforms out there that you can use to build your blockchain. And then what are the use cases of the blockchain? So how industries can use blockchains. Now, I have to admit that I covered 27, and it doesn't mean that I covered all of them. So again, you have to use your own creativity. For example, sometimes when clients come to us, we assess their problems and try to see, if we can come up with a blockchain solution for them. So it's just that sometimes you have to assess the problem, and there might be industry that is not in 27. Still, you are seeing that there is a need for blockchain for them. So you just can come up with a solution. And obviously, once you know the use cases and pick up an industry or area that you want to start your own venture, then the next is that follow the step-by-step procedure, 5 phases to go through that. And the most important one is the research, to find out about what platform you want, choice of platform, find out about your commercialization plan, idea that you have, and the architectures, and implement just all the planning and research, then prototype. Now, I also added some of the resources links. We have some articles in our website that if you want to learn more about the blockchains, itself, and also we have some training courses if you guys want a little bit learn more about Hyperledger or other kind of the blockchains platform. And then obviously, if you have more specific questions, or if you want to stay in touch with me, just feel free to email me or add me on LinkedIn. And then if you're in DC area, by all means, you're welcome to join our community in DC and just come and attend our event we have in DC area. And so basically now I just want to discuss your questions. So first questions. So I'm just read out the question to you guys. How a company to assess the financial value before investing in blockchain. So again, so how a company to assess the financial value before investing. So that's a tricky question. So again, as far as I understood this question, you're talking about, so I have a company, how do I know I'm going to get the return on my investment, right? So I am a company right now. Actually, this is not the first time I'm seeing this question. So speaking of our client, we are doing some stuff right now for the bank. So speaking of our kind of our experience, the answer to this is tricky. It depends. Some companies come to us because they are under the pressure of the competitors. They are seeing that the other businesses in their community are using blockchain. They come to us to build something so that they are not going to be left behind. And others have a specific plan. We have another cybersecurity company. They came to us and said, look, we know what we are looking for. So then they already have done their kind of the assessment on financial value of what they're looking for. And then others come back to your question. They don't know. I mean, we are in talk with some Fortune 500. They don't know how. They know that there's something, but they don't know how they can. So basically, for those cases, it's it's a little bit difficult to really quantify the financial value. All that you can do for them, to tell them, look, by using blockchain, you can have this kind of the improvement in your, your system in terms of the slashing or your overhead costs, things like that. So there is, again, for some of these companies, you can approach them, show them demo that what was before and what is after, and what are some objective, some quantifiable metrics that you can get by doing this. So it may not essentially be a financial value. It may be improving the performance, lead times. So as long as you can go and talk to them, show them that there are some value and some improvement into business operations, and if they can appreciate those improvement, then they are on board. Another question someone asked, can you elaborate on the use case of confidential and private data? So that's a good question. So in the Hyperledger Fabric, basically, so in Hyperledger Fabric, the data that is shared on the networks, some of the data are private. So what happened is, in the Hyperledger Fabric, let's say that, for example, the supply chain in the Hyperledger Fabric. So the information of the asset, like inventory, right, it's shared between the parties. Now, there are some cases that two members of one consortium decide to share some private information among themselves. So they can do that through that private collection in Hyperledger, to share that specifically among themselves without sharing that with the rest of the members of the consortium. So so basically, that's one of the reasons I like Hyperledger. It gives more flexibility for enterprise implementation, because such cases of data sharing is very valid in enterprise. And and also for confidential information, it comes under that private, because one of the things is that, for example, on Ethereum, it's public. You may not share some of the informations. Even under for example, Hyperledger, as I said, you may also set up the system in a way that between two different nodes on Hyperledger Fabric, some of the private data can be shared without affecting the other peers. And the other question is that, are there some good sample blockchain application on GitHub? So sample blockchain application. So answer to these questions depends on the platform, right? So if you're saying that, for example, are they on GitHub that they can use? So I'm gonna give you an example, right? So for the voting, if you remember, one of the use cases of blockchain was voting, using the blockchain for voting. For example, some large companies are using the blockchain for taking the voting of the shareholder. And for that form, for example, if you go to Solidity website, there is the tutorial for that with all the source code that you can build the voting, and that voting can be used for shareholders, can be used for public elections, can be used for marketing to take the vote from the customer surveys. So now coming back to the platform, like for example, Hyperledger. I mean, for example, our book has one kind of the chapters on supply chain, how you can use that in supply chain. Now, frankly speaking, one of the things about blockchain community is that some of the projects that they are building may not be able to share their source code on GitHub because of the proprietary, like confidential agreement that they have, which is the case with us, because some of our banks, they don't want us to talk about their project, and others they share. So it's just that they may or may not share some of those information on the GitHub. At the same time, as I said, if you look at some of this, like some of this project, like I told you, voting, and you might be able to get the source code. And again, you can also check the Hyperledger website to see some of the demos of they have put on the GitHub. Okay, there's another question, is that how blockchain can solve the malicious actors who send the fake information in the blockchains via consensus. So again, comes back to consensus, right? So how you define the policies in your network and consensus. So when you do have a Hyperledger, you define the policies. Policies says that under what conditions, the transaction can be added to the network, right? So that is embedded into your smart contract, right? So again, there is another aspect of this is that called this blockchain cybersecurity. If you guys are familiar with 51% hijacking, so 51% of the network hijacking means that if 51% of the networks get hijacked, means that they agreed on some malicious activity, the transaction going to be added, even though it should not be added, right? So these are some of the little bit more advanced topics related to cybersecurity. But nevertheless, answer to your question is, it comes down to the policies that you define your network, because when you say malicious actors, in a Hyperledger, each member has been authenticated to be a member. So it's because it's a private network, you can't let anyone that is not authenticated to be a member to begin with, right? On the other hand, on the Ethereum, which is a public, again, you have to rely on your mining and you rely on your consensus to solve that problem. Any more questions? President,
yeah, Matt, note that there's some questions on the YouTube stream. You might want to pull that up and just those questions. Oh, sorry, I didn't drop. Let me drop the link in the.
Can you send that to the chat?
Yeah, I just dropped it in the chat.
Okay, just 1 second. Yes, so I'm looking at the YouTube. Is it on YouTube, right?
I'm just telling you that can there be use case for water management in rural case areas like flow of water supply from dams? I'm just pasting it down in the chat. You can read it from the chat also.
Yeah, so you're talking about the water flow?
Yeah, I just posted in the chat. You can check it out.
Okay, just 1 second, because I am trying to, let me see, on the YouTube right now. So let me just 1 second, because my phone may show me differently than my, let me see, just 1 second, chat. Okay, YouTube. Okay, can there be any use case of water management in rural areas, like flow water supply dams, can be improved the existence consensus algorithms like those IBM? So it's so water water management system. So basically, I think your part of the water management is a part of the energy that I discussed, right? So basically, the water management is like energy. So I think you can assign each person who received that water. If there's a scarcity of water involved, right? You can assign any of those persons who received that water, and then when the person received, they can also use a QR barcode to validate that they've received. You know what I mean? So that way you keep track of who received. It's not going to forge. And then you said that can you improve on the existing consensus algorithms like those? I doubt that IBM has a consensus algorithms. IBM is using the Hyperledger. So again, as far as I know, that there are certain consensus algorithms that right now exist in the industry. And then it's just consensus in itself, it requires very complex mathematical models to begin with. So it's not like you just create something out of the air and just start with it. So and I don't think IBM has its own consensus algorithm, because IBM uses a Hyperledger, they build a product on top of it. And then if someone else asked me, if we have to monetize loyal customers for a product, how we can do it on a blockchain? Monetize loyal, okay, so monetizing the loyal customer is part of the loyalty program, right? So it's very simple. So you give it one token to each of your customers, right, as loyalty. And then those is like part of the asset tokenization. So that token has some value. And then on Ethereum, they can also eventually they can convert that token into the dollar, right? So you give them a token. So any activity, for example, let's say that you have a very high traffic website and you want to incentivize your visitors, right? And you say that if you do activity A, you're going to get one token. Activity B, you're going to get 2 tokens. And then you just give them a token. And then one of the things is that the very fact that these tokens get extra value is scarcity. So because once you have certain tokens you issued, and then they have that token, and then later on they can sell it to someone else as higher value. So that again, it's like inside your network, the token get higher value. So again, I suggest you to look into the loyalty program, how to asset tokenization can be done in the loyalty program, and then water management in flooding. So water management in flooding, that's a good question. I think that's related to the crisis management, you know, like emergency or crisis management. I think United Nations, to best of my knowledge, are doing some project. Today I heard that they have done some project, and I mean, they're working on some project. Just check it out, because Red Cross and some agencies under the United Nations, they're working on kind of the crisis management, of using the blockchain for crisis management, especially the logistic part of it. You might be able to look into that to see what they are doing and if you can utilize those projects for your water management in the case of flooding or in case of the catastrophes. So guys, is there any questions, or David, do you have anything you want to add?
No, nothing to add, but if people are interested in some of these, or I guess, yeah, let me add one thing. If people are interested in some of these use cases, here, let me pull up a link. Hyperledger does have a number of special interest groups that map to many of these use cases. I just dropped a link in the chat, and you're certainly welcome to get involved. For example, if you're interested in use cases around supply chain, healthcare, you know, finance, climate, you know, we do have places in the community where you can come and meet with others who are interested in those spaces as well. These are all open forums. If you have additional questions around any of these things, that is a good place to go.
Yeah, and also one of the things I'm also do, I'm gonna, you're right, David, that's a very good point. So Hyperledger have some special groups that these are very good for people who are doing something in a specific niche. So you just join those webinars, join the conversation over there to discuss your specific question, the professional in that niche, and that's good. And always you can message me. By all, I am not saying that I'm expecting all those 27 industries. I mean, like, I know enough, so as I said, I always search online to find out what similar use cases happen in your industry, try to get an idea how we can apply. And then, yes, so there are 3 chapters of my book. Someone asked for my book. Those 3 chapters of my book are there. The first chapters and the chapter 7, which talks about end-to-end supply chain, is there. And then we also upload the chapter 9, which talks about migration to Hyperledger Fabric 2 and what are the challenges you have to watch for it. Actually, after maybe tomorrow or today, later today or tomorrow, I'm gonna add the comment in the meetup to give you guys coupon to access it for free. And again, thanks everyone for today's webinar attending. And if you have a question, just add me in LinkedIn a message. I would be happy to discuss that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Matt. If you have any questions, please add him on LinkedIn, or you can share with us also. Also,
okay,
from Hyperledger Sweden, we are running a bi-weekly tech study circle on every Friday, 3 p.m. CEST, the Sweden time. So feel free to join that session also. We are following up an agenda, and it's basically a set of workshops delivered by one of our community members. You can learn a lot of things and wanted to do some hands-on, be part of that. It's a really very successful initiative. You can get all the details through our meetup group. In meetup.com, search Hyperledger Sweden. Then you can see in the upcoming event section. So with this, we would like to thank you, Matt Zent, and also David Boswell from Hyperledger for this session. I hope you all enjoyed it. So keep watching out more from us in future. Thank you so much. And
thanks everyone.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, David. Thanks. Take care. Bye.